The price of intelligence. Why knowing more often makes life harder. What if the greatest gift humanity ever received was also its greatest curse? Every breakthrough, every invention, every work of art, every civilization, every rocket launched into space began inside a single place, the human mind. Intelligence turned a fragile primate into the most powerful species the Earth has ever known. It allowed us to tame fire, cross oceans, build cities, split the atom, and walk on the moon. It gave us the power to reshape an entire planet. But that same intelligence also gave us something else. Anxiety, regret, loneliness, the fear of failure, the fear of death, and questions that may never have answers. No other known species looks up at the stars and wonders why it exists. No other known species imagines futures that haven't happened, or mourns possibilities that never became reality. So here's the question. If intelligence was meant to make life better, why does it so often make life harder? To answer that, we need to forget everything we know about being human. Imagine Earth millions of years ago. No cities, no language, no technology, no history, just survival. Our ancestors weren't kings of the animal kingdom. They weren't even close. Compared to the creatures around them, they were almost defenseless. A tiger had strength, an eagle had vision, a cheetah had speed, a snake carried venom. Humans had none of those. They couldn't outrun predators, they couldn't overpower them, they couldn't fly, they couldn't hide beneath armor or scales. If survival depended only on physical ability, our story should have ended before it ever began. But evolution had another idea. Instead of creating stronger bodies, it slowly built stronger minds. It didn't happen overnight. It took millions of years. Every generation faced impossible challenges: finding food, avoiding predators, surviving harsh climates, protecting their families. The individuals who could solve problems, adapt, remember, and cooperate were more likely to survive. Their children inherited slightly better brains. Then their children did the same. Generation after generation, the human brain grew. Not because evolution wanted humans to become philosophers, or scientists, or artists. Evolution doesn't care about happiness. It doesn't care about wisdom. It only rewards one thing: survival. Intelligence wasn't created to help us understand the universe. It was created to keep us alive long enough to reproduce. Everything else came later, but something unexpected happened. As intelligence increased, our ancestors gained a completely new ability. They could imagine, not just remember the past, not just react to the present. They could picture futures that didn't exist. Before crossing a dangerous river, they could imagine drowning. They could imagine the hunt. Before winter arrived, they could prepare for it. That single ability changed everything. Instead of reacting to reality, humans began predicting reality. And prediction is one of the greatest survival tools evolution ever created. A creature that can see danger before it arrives is far more likely to survive than one that waits until it's too late. For thousands of generations, this ability made us stronger, smarter, safer, more successful. Eventually, those same minds invented language. Language allowed knowledge to survive even after people died. One person discovered fire, the next improved it. Another built tools. Another built better ones. Knowledge no longer disappeared with each generation. It accumulated, like bricks stacked upon bricks, until those bricks became civilizations. Everything humanity has ever achieved began with imagination. Every hospital, every bridge, every book, every computer, every satellite orbiting Earth. Someone imagined it before it existed. Intelligence became humanity's greatest superpower, or so it seemed, because hidden inside that extraordinary gift was a flaw so deeply woven into our minds that most of us don't even realize it's there. The very same imagination that allows you to create also allows you to suffer. Close your eyes. Within seconds, you can revisit your childhood. You can picture your future. You can replay an embarrassing moment from years ago as if it happened yesterday. You can imagine losing someone you love. You can imagine failing an exam, losing your job, being rejected, or dying. None of those things have to be happening. Your body still reacts. Your heart beats faster. Your breathing changes. Your muscles tense. A thought becomes almost as powerful as reality. Think about that for a moment. A lion can make you afraid, but so can an idea. And unlike lions, ideas never sleep. The human brain became so powerful that it escaped the prison of the present moment. Animals mostly experience danger when danger is actually there. Humans can experience danger while sitting safely alone in a quiet room. Nothing is chasing them. Nothing is attacking them. Yet, inside their minds, they're already running. That may be the greatest irony of intelligence. Evolution taught us to predict threats. Modern life gave us endless things to predict. A conversation that hasn't happened, an exam next week, a career years from now, a future that exists only inside imagination. The machine that once protected us now often turns against us, not because it's broken, but because it's doing exactly what evolution designed it to do, searching for danger, constantly, even when there isn't any. And perhaps that was the first price intelligence demanded. If intelligence were only about solving problems, then becoming smarter should make life easier. But that's not what happened. The more humanity understood the world, the more questions appeared. Every answer uncovered another mystery. Every discovery revealed how much remained unknown. For most of human history, people believed they understood the universe. The earth was the center of everything. The stars revolved around us. Disease was a punishment. Lightning was the anger of the gods. Simple answers made the world feel certain. Then knowledge began to grow. Astronomy showed that Earth wasn't the center of the universe. Biology revealed that humans were part of the same evolutionary story as every other living creature. Uncovered a universe stranger than anyone had imagined. With every discovery, certainty disappeared. The universe became bigger, life became more complex, and humanity became smaller. This pattern doesn't only exist in science, it exists inside every human mind. As children, the world feels simple. Adults have the answers. The future seems obvious. Life appears to follow clear rules. But as we grow older, those certainties slowly disappear. You realize your parents don't have every answer. Success isn't guaranteed. Good people suffer. Bad people sometimes succeed. Life isn't fair, and no one truly knows what tomorrow will bring. Knowledge doesn't just increase understanding. Sometimes it destroys illusions, and illusions can be comforting. Imagine watching a magic trick. The performance fills you with wonder. For a moment, the impossible seems real. Then someone explains exactly how the trick works. The mystery disappears. You gain knowledge, but lose something else. Wonder. Intelligence is filled with moments like that. Every answer has a cost. Sometimes the cost is certainty. Sometimes it's innocence. Sometimes it's peace. The philosopher is often associated with the idea that true wisdom begins when we recognize how much we don't know. At first, that sounds like a contradiction. Shouldn't knowledge make us feel more confident? Instead, it often has the opposite effect. The more experts study the universe, the more mysteries they uncover. The deeper psychologists explore the human mind, the more complex it becomes. The more we learn about consciousness, the less certain we are about what consciousness actually is. Intelligence doesn't always replace uncertainty. Sometimes it reveals it. And perhaps that's why people often mistake confidence for intelligence. The loudest voice in the room isn't always the wisest. Those who know very little often see the world in black and white. Everything seems obvious. Everything has an easy answer. But those who spend years studying a subject usually discover something unexpected. Reality is complicated. There are exceptions, unknowns, contradictions. The deeper you look, the harder certainty becomes. Maybe intelligence isn't measured by how many answers you have. Maybe it's measured by how many questions you're willing to live with. And that creates another burden, because the human mind hates uncertainty. It wants clear answers. It wants certainty. It wants control. But intelligence keeps pulling us toward a reality where certainty becomes harder to find. And for many people, that uncertainty quietly becomes exhausting. But perhaps the heaviest burden intelligence ever gave us wasn't knowledge. It was self-awareness. At some point in our evolution, the human mind crossed an invisible line. We stopped simply experiencing life. We started observing ourselves experiencing it. You don't just feel happiness. You notice that you're happy. You don't just feel fear. You think about why you're afraid. You don't simply exist. You know that you exist. That may sound ordinary, but it's one of the strangest abilities in the known universe. The same mind that observes the stars can turn inward and observe itself. It can question its own thoughts, its own beliefs, its own identity. Who am I? Why do I think the way I do? Would I still be me if my memories disappeared? Questions like these don't help you hunt. They don't help you escape predators, yet they define what it means to be human. Self-awareness transforms survival into something much more complicated. Because once you become aware of yourself, you also become aware of your imperfections. You notice every mistake, every weakness, every flaw, every version of yourself that could have been better. Animals fail and move on. Humans fail and replay the moment hundreds of times. Not because the event is happening again, but because the mind can recreate it perfectly. An awkward conversation from 5 years ago, a missed opportunity, a wrong decision, a single sentence you wish you had never said. The moment is gone, but your brain keeps it alive. Because intelligence is designed to learn from mistakes. Remembering failure once helped our ancestors survive. If touching fire caused pain, remembering that pain kept them alive. But the modern world is different. Many of the mistakes we replay aren't life-threatening. They're social, emotional, personal, yet the brain often treats them with the same urgency, as if your survival still depends on them. And then there's comparison. One of the quietest consequences of intelligence. You don't just evaluate your own life. You compare it with everyone else's. Someone is richer, smarter, more attractive, more successful. Social media has amplified this instinct, but it didn't create it. The tendency to compare ourselves is deeply human. Intelligence allows us to imagine not only the life we have, but every life we could have lived instead. Every road not taken, every opportunity missed, every alternate version of ourselves. That ability inspires ambition, but it also creates dissatisfaction, because reality can never compete with imagination. The perfect version of your life exists only in your mind, and no real life can ever fully match it. Perhaps that's why contentment can feel so difficult. The smarter our imagination becomes, the easier it is to imagine something better. A better career, a better relationship, a better body, a better future. The goal keeps moving, and the mind keeps chasing it. Intelligence doesn't just expand what's possible, it expands what feels missing. Maybe that's why being human can sometimes feel like carrying an invisible weight. Not because life is always difficult, but because the mind is capable of imagining lives beyond the one we're actually living. And sometimes, the greatest distance we'll ever travel is the one between reality and the version of reality we created inside our own heads. There's another strange paradox hiding inside intelligence. The very thing that helped us solve the world's greatest problems also created problems that never existed before. Think about the lives of our ancestors. For most of human history, survival was simple. Not easy, but simple. Find food, find shelter, protect your family, stay alive. There was little time to question whether your life had meaning. Survival was meaning. Today, most people don't spend their days escaping predators. Many of us live longer, safer, and more comfortably than any generation before us. And yet, rates of stress, anxiety, and loneliness remain remarkably common. Why? Because once survival becomes easier, the mind looks for something else to solve. It's almost as if intelligence refuses to stay idle. When there are no immediate dangers, it begins searching for invisible ones. When there are no urgent problems, it starts creating questions. Am I successful enough? Am I wasting my life? What do other people think of me? What if I fail? What if I'm choosing the wrong career? What if I'm not living up to my potential? These aren't questions of survival. They're questions of identity. Questions that only a deeply self-aware mind can ask. But intelligence didn't stop there. It gave us another extraordinary ability, the ability to imagine the future. At first, this was one of humanity's greatest advantages. Imagine a drought before it happens. Store food, prepare, survive. Imagine a storm approaching, build shelter, stay alive. The ability to think ahead changed everything. But in the modern world, that same ability often turns into something else. We don't just prepare for tomorrow. We live inside tomorrow. We're worried about next week, next year, the next decade. Sometimes we become so focused on a future that hasn't arrived that we stop experiencing the present we're actually living. It's one of the strangest contradictions of the human mind. The only moment we can ever truly live is the present. Yet intelligence constantly pulls our attention away from it, into memories, into predictions, into possibilities, into fears. It's as if the greatest achievement of evolution accidentally made us strangers to the only moment that truly exists. And perhaps that's the real paradox. Intelligence gave us the power to escape the limits of the present, but in doing so, it also made the present harder to appreciate. The future became an obsession, the past became a prison, and somewhere between the two, many people forgot how to simply exist. Maybe the price of intelligence isn't that we know too much. Maybe it's that we can never stop thinking. The human mind is an extraordinary machine. It builds civilizations, discovers galaxies, writes symphonies, changes history. But unlike every tool we've ever created, it never truly switches off. Even in silence, it's still speaking. Even in peace, it's still searching. Even when everything is finally okay, it asks one more question, and then another, and another. Perhaps the greatest strength of intelligence is also its greatest weakness. It always wants to understand more, even when understanding comes at the cost of peace. So, does that mean intelligence is a mistake? Should we know less, think less, ask fewer questions? At first, it might seem that way. After all, if intelligence brings anxiety, uncertainty, and endless questions, wouldn't ignorance be the better choice? It's an idea that has echoed throughout history. People often say ignorance is bliss, and in some moments it certainly feels true. A child can laugh without worrying about the future. Someone unaware of a danger may sleep peacefully through the night. Knowledge can be heavy, sometimes painfully heavy. But intelligence isn't the enemy. In fact, everything that gives life its deepest meaning also comes from the very same mind that causes us to suffer. Love, art, music, science, compassion, curiosity. Every poem ever written, every symphony ever composed, every spacecraft launched into the darkness of space, every act of kindness between strangers exists because human beings can imagine something greater than what already exists. The same imagination that creates fear also creates hope. The same memory that traps us in regret allows us to cherish moments long after they've passed. The same awareness that makes us fear death makes every moment of life precious. Without intelligence, there would be less suffering, but there would also be less beauty, less discovery, less wonder, less humanity. Perhaps intelligence isn't a curse. Perhaps it's a force that amplifies whatever we choose to feed. It can build hospitals or battlefields. It can invent medicine or weapons. It can create connection or isolation. The mind itself is neither good nor bad. It's powerful, and power always carries responsibility. Maybe that's the real price of intelligence. Not pain, responsibility. The responsibility to choose what kind of future we create. The responsibility to question our own beliefs. The responsibility to keep learning, even when the answers make us uncomfortable. Because intelligence gave us something no other known species possesses to the same extent. Choice. We aren't driven only by instinct. We can reflect, we can change. We can become better than we were yesterday. It doesn't allow us to remain the same. It constantly asks us to grow, to adapt, to understand. And growth has never been comfortable. Maybe the price of intelligence was never meant to be paid in suffering alone. Maybe it was meant to be paid in courage. The courage to face uncertainty, to live with unanswered questions, to accept that understanding the universe also means understanding ourselves. And that may be the hardest journey of all. So, let's return to the question we began with. If intelligence was meant to make life better, why does it so often make life harder? Perhaps because we were asking the wrong question. Intelligence was never designed to make us happy. Evolution never promised happiness. It promised survival. Everything else, we created ourselves. We turned survival into civilization. Civilizations into cultures. Cultures into dreams. And dreams into futures that no other species could even imagine. But every step forward carried a hidden cost. The more we understood, the more we realized how much we didn't. The more we imagined, the more we worried. The more we became aware of ourselves, the more we questioned who we were. That is the paradox of being human. The same mind capable of curing diseases is capable of creating fears that exist only in imagination. The same species that looked into the night sky and discovered galaxies billions of light years away still struggles to understand the thoughts inside its own head. Maybe that's because intelligence isn't the end of the journey. It's only the beginning. Knowledge teaches us how the world works, but wisdom teaches us how to live within it. And those two things are not the same. Perhaps the true goal was never to know everything. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that every answer leads to another question. Maybe the goal is learning which questions are worth carrying and which ones are worth letting go. In the end, the price of intelligence isn't anxiety, it isn't uncertainty, it isn't even the awareness of death. Those are only consequences. The real price of intelligence is responsibility. The responsibility to choose curiosity over fear, understanding over ignorance, compassion over hatred, creation over destruction. Because intelligence gave humanity extraordinary power, and every extraordinary power comes with an extraordinary choice. Every single day, whether we realize it or not, we decide how we'll use the most powerful tool evolution ever created, our minds. So perhaps intelligence isn't humanity's greatest curse, and perhaps it isn't our greatest gift either. Maybe it's simply the greatest responsibility ever placed into the hands of a species, and whether it becomes a blessing or a burden depends entirely on what we choose to do with it. The universe gave us the ability to ask questions. The rest is up to us.